Welcome back, ballers. Ooh, hold on. Let me take my night guard out. I get so excited when I'm ready to do these podcasts. And an idea pops in my head. And I'm like, oh, I have to tell my ballers this story. And then, anyway, I forgot to take my night guard out. Which, by the way, that thing is amazing. Saves my teeth. Been in the dental field forever. Been telling people this forever. But, never follow my own advice. But oh my word, as I'm getting older and I grind my teeth so bad, like it's terrible. So go to your dentist, get it looked at. It's helped me a lot, but sorry about that. Welcome to Chesticles. This is Jacqueline. I call it Chesticles because I have brass balls. And clearly I don't think first before I do things, as obviously you just saw that. Which is a problem sometimes, but not all the time. I like to think of it as being funny. I don't always do it on purpose, but I'm a goofball. What can I say? But I wanted to tell you guys, I never told you this. This is interesting. Do you know, when I was 9-10 years old, I was a huge CB fan. I'm talking like when they worry about kids today and screen time and, you got to watch the kids with their screen time and, I don't know. Yes and no. I get it. I get what you're saying. However, I learn a lot from screen time. I listen to a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries. So I'm kind of on the fence on that. My kids, when they were little, used to play games. Yes, they played games that were, not so great games, but they also played Stack the States, so they could learn the states. And they played, which bone belongs where. There's good screen time, too. And as long as you can still have relationships with other human beings and not have your head in a phone all day, or a tablet or whatever your choice of screen is, I don't know. I'm not so worried about it because it is what it is. And at the end of the day, depending on what job you choose, that's what you're going to probably be doing for the rest of your life. Even doctors now have screens for robotic surgery. If they were never allowed screen times, maybe they wouldn't do such great surgery. I'm just saying, I don't know the answers. However, that being said, no, I don't think you should waste your time watching stupid TikTok videos that you learn nothing from or make fun of other people. Of course not. Back to me. My favorite subject. So yeah, I was 9 or 10, and my dad, I've talked to you about him before, and April and May are always tough months for me every year. Oh, I'm getting choked up already because because my mom died in April of 2013 and my dad died in May of 2015. And they were married at 16. They didn't graduate from high school. My dad bought, listen to this story. This all goes back to the CB, I promise. I do ramble a lot, but this one's going to go back. My dad worked at a steak shop. He's 16 years old. He's married and he's got a kid. And he worked at a steak shop. I'm from Philly. Steak shop that's very popular. Is Germantown. I believe it was on Germantown Avenue, but if not, somewhere close to there, in Germantown, part of Philadelphia. And he worked there along with many other jobs, I'm sure. He was very poor. He was one of 8. They lived in a 2-bedroom dirt floor home with an outhouse. And he's 16 with a kid, and he's working at this steak shop to make money day and night. Well, I suppose at some point or another, the way this story was explained to me by my dad was the guy, saw my dad was a hard worker, and he was a hard worker. And he said, look, I'm getting ready to retire. How about we make some sort of deal here where you take over the steak shop and you give me X% of the profits, and then you keep the X%. Now, I have a strong doubt there was any legal, binding documents, confirming this. I think, back then my dad used to call it a gentleman's handshake. I don't know, but it worked. And so what my dad did, being the charismatic person that he was, is he made the steaks and the hoagies. And in Philly, we call hoagies, some people call them subs. They're not, they're hoagies. We call them hoagies. And a grinder, that's a whole other story. A grinder is just a warm hoagie. Don't get me started on the whole thing. But anyway, he gets really involved in this, and he's working his balls off. And he does not want my mother to work because at that time, which is 1960, my father's opinion was that women did not work. And you were a bad husband if your wife worked. That was very frowned upon in his world. Okay, we'll call it his world. And plus my mom had to take care of a baby. Well, anyway, so this is what he does. He's 16. So anyway, it all works out. Well, he ends up turning the steak shop into this, like, it was already doing pretty well, don't get me wrong, but he makes this great new hoagie, which I still have the recipe for my dad's hoagies, which when he died, he didn't want a funeral, which neither do I, but he said, I want Jacqueline to make my recipe for Italian hoagies, which when I find I will give to you. And this is what he did. He used sharp provolone. There was a certain way he did it. The bread had to be perfect. It was, I'm telling you, I know I didn't taste one because I was not born yet, but I know they were good, and I tasted them when he made them when I got older. Anyway, so from there, he wants to move up along. I don't know whatever happened, if he sold the steak shop. I mean, there's bits and pieces. I don't remember every single moment of my parents' lives that they told me. But he decided to buy a lunch truck. And I've mentioned this before in my previous episodes. A lunch truck driver was a personality. Okay, it was not a job. It was not a career. This was a personality. And in order to be a lunch truck driver, you were never late. So that phrase that you hear all the time, early's on time is late, and late is unacceptable. My dad lives by that rule, followed that rule. That was his rule. How I turned out the way I did in my teen years is beyond me. Now I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with not being late. But I think if you remember last episode or the episode before that, I told you I got fired because I couldn't get my ass out of bed, and I didn't have to be in until 10 o'clock. And then they call me and wake me up and say, Jacqueline, you're late for work again. I go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'll be fall back asleep. Yeah. Oh yeah. But God bless my dad. He's 16. He does this. He's working. Well, he decides he's going to buy this lunch truck. And he's going to work at the Philadelphia Shipyard or Navy Yard. I don't really know what they call it. He called it the Shipyard. Maybe its technical name is a Navy Yard. I know they're doing a beer run now that my son is doing, which I think is adorable. Like a 5K or something, but it's a festival type of thing. But I love that it's still in use. And it's funny because if my dad was alive, he'd be there rooting him on. Anyway, he got the lunch truck, and I remember he had to fly to Chicago to pick it up. And my father had never flown before, and he was petrified. Both my parents petrified of flying. And none of them had ever flown before or whatever. But I don't know what kind of alcohol he had to induce to get himself on that plane to get to Chicago. But then he was going to drive the truck back to Philadelphia. And he was a lunch truck driver. And it was one of those, if you remember, it was silver. But it almost looked like quilting. Like it had like a diamond pattern of the silver. And both sides open. And the one side that opened was like the propane and like all the mechanical parts of it. Okay, so that side normally stayed closed. The other side that was open was an array of tasty cakes, candy bars, crackers. My mother would make homemade sandwiches, and she used to have this special plastic that she had to buy, and she would make the sandwiches, and then she would use the iron, and she would iron the plastic sealed when she would make like egg salad sandwiches, tuna fish sandwiches, lunch meat. I don't think he did too much lunch meat. I don't remember, but They loved their egg salad sandwiches. My mother, she made such a good egg salad sandwich. But I have to tell you, there were funny stories of my mom putting the eggs on. My mom putting the eggs on for the egg salad for the day, for the next day. That was her one job besides taking care of us kids, which is a big job. But all he asked her to do was make the egg salad sandwiches. And she put the boiling water on with the eggs in, and she'd fall asleep. And more than once, we had splattered eggs on the ceiling. And my father was not happy about it. Not happy. And I remember him looking, you got one job. You got one job. And I was like, oh, I kind of felt bad for her. But it's like, Mom, how many times are you going to fall asleep? If you don't fall asleep with a cigarette in your mouth and then burn the sheets or the couch, now you're falling asleep with the eggs burning. But thank God we're all still here for some reason. Circling back. So we got this lunch truck, and I loved this lunch truck because it was brand new and it was shiny. And we lived in a row home, like I mentioned. I think now they call them townhouses, but they're row homes, and they were brick. I lived in the northeast section of Philadelphia. Well, the truck was allowed to be parked on the street. I know some areas now do not allow you to park commercial vehicles on streets. I don't know if that's the case in the city of Philadelphia anymore. I live in the suburbs now, but I know some of the homeowners associations around here, not allowed. You're a roofer, you're an electrician, you own a lawn service, get a garage. So I don't know but back then it was fine. Our biggest problem was my friends would break into the lunch truck to get the goodies on there. Now, I never broke into my father's truck, but I would steal some candy from the garage, which is where we kept like the Nestle Crunch bars and things that needed to stay cool and wouldn't melt, like, in the sun and stuff like that, because the garage was very cool. And he'd have cold drinks in there. He had like two little, like bins with ice in it, and you had to get yourself a nice cold orange soda or a cream soda or grape soda. Oh, God, pineapple soda. Like, I don't see that anymore. And I don't know why, but I just love that stuff. Well, anyway, and then the very back part of this truck was the coffee station. So you'd flip up the back. I'm calling it a wing because I don't know what it's really called. But, you flip up the back. And that was the coffee station, which I think I told you before, my father was the supreme coffee man. And people would line up at his truck, even though there's other places, other truck drivers there, other lunch truck drivers there. But they'd wait in line for my dad's coffee. And I said, Daddy, because I went to work with him when I was 5, because I didn't really want to go to school. I was like, I want to work. 5. I was 5. I wanted to work. I don't want to go to work. I mean, school. I don't want to, I don't like my teachers. People were irritating to me. And I just was not really so much of a greatly social person. But boy, I loved my dad. And you could make money. I mean, to me, this is like, I remember watching a TV commercial and they were talking about how this place was looking for child psychiatrists. I was like, Mom, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Let's call Mom. I want to do it right now. She's like, you got to go to school for that. I said, no, you don't, Mom. It says right there, child psychiatrist. I'm a child. I can be a psychiatrist because, mouthy me. I had all the answers. Oh, I was a treat to raise. My poor mother, God rest her. Anyway, circling back, that was the coffee station. He made the great coffee, which... Here's a little tip for you that my dad taught me. Always put if you take your coffee black, you take your coffee black. But if you take it with cream and sugar, you put that in first. Okay? So you get your cup, you get your cream and your sugar, or just your cream or just your sugar, however you take your coffee. You put those items in first. And then you pour the coffee over top of that. I don't know why, but... that just was the best way to make coffee, something with the emulsification, and it was cream. It wasn't milk. It wasn't, I don't even think there was low fat back then. I honestly don't remember. But, that was what you got. And people would line up. Now, I know his coffee was really good. My mom's egg salad sandwiches, the ones that didn't land up on the ceiling, they were really good. People liked all that, and he had all the good snacks and stuff. He had the best snacks. He would ask me, he said, well, what's good? I said, you got to get some sweet tarts in there, buddy. You got to get some sweet tarts in there. That's a big thing. I was like his little helper. And I know the whole time he was just playing with me, but It felt so good to be important at 5, to tell him what was important to sell in his truck. Anyway, getting back to it, he's making a great living now. He is providing for 3 children with a wife that he refused to let work. And she wanted to work. My mother's a brilliant woman. And when they finally divorced and she went to work, believe me, she did very well for herself. Considering they both got their GEDs, because this is what hell was, Brilliant woman. My mother's always had her head in a book. Anyway, so he got this CB. This is where, see how I'm going back? I didn't rattle off too much there, but I'm telling you, this is what happened. So he had the CB. Now, the CB that he had was attached to the truck. So it'd be like somewhere around about the, dashboard. Of course, if you heard my episode about the guy that picked me up on a date that had no dashboard, I don't know what he would ever do with the CB, but that's a whole other story. So anywho, he had a CB and it had this little mic that was connected with one of those circular cords, circle cord into the microphone. You press the button on the side of it and you're like, breaker 19 or breaker, blah, 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 whatever that was. And there was lingo. For example, you've heard some of it. Good buddy. Then there was, if it was a policeman was coming up on the road, they would warn each other, these truckers. Because this wasn't, my dad had a lunch truck, but like these were for 18-wheelers, had these things too. But they would warn each other of road out ahead, cops up ahead. And gosh, it just lost me what they used to call cops. Oh, I can't even think of it. Anyway, it'll come to me. But they would, warn each other. Like, we flash each other lights. That's what they would do. Breaker 19. We got the old... Oh, it just came to me. Anyway, whatever they called them. He's up there hiding behind the tree. Thanks, good buddy. It was just a very polite society, this CB society. So I start getting really into the CB. So he notices this and he's like, finally, this bitch is interested in something besides pissing people off. So he gets a mobile adapter so that we can bring the CB in the house. Because he doesn't want me sitting out in the truck, because he knows me. I'll drive that thing off. I was not a good kid. But he got a mobile adapter and he brought the CB in so we could talk on the CB at home. And Jeannie, my sisters, they both liked it. Then they didn't like it. My mom, she liked it, then she didn't like it. I was obsessed with it. Do you mean to tell me that I can talk to other people that are in their homes and I'm not using a telephone? And I would. And they could be driving on the road and I could talk to them. Now, I'm 9 or 10 at the time. I matured very soon, so my voice sounded a lot older than it was. So, of course, there was some creepers on there, but I was a pretty tough kid, so I handled myself pretty well. And like I said, for the most part, it was a very polite society in that CB world. Everybody really genuinely wanted to help each other. So, I got so involved in it, and they were like, finally, the kid found something she's interested in. She's good at it. So then they get me my home base. Now, a home base has nothing to do with the mobile thing that you have in your truck. A home base is a home base. I mean, that is used at home. They got me a D104. I still remember this. I'm 58 years old, so this is 48 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. A D104 microphone, which was also called a lollipop. And it was as you can imagine, a long lollipop-looking microphone that was just like the best there was at the time. And we had this huge antenna, this triangular antenna. Like, my parents did all this for me. I think they were worried. That I was going to go down the wrong road, and I probably would have. But I loved that thing, and I had met friends my own age, and, I loved it. And I met adults on there, too, and they were all, most honestly very respectful people. Learned a lot. There was a lot of news on there, like real news of people like that. Like, I just saw a car fire at this street here, like kind of like X's now, like, real news happening, no opinions and stuff like that. And the people that were opinionated, they didn't last real long on there because you just kind of tune them out. But you had to get a license with the, what was it called? The FCC? Is it the FCC? And so not one for following all the rules in our lives, but my father was one to make sure I had a license. And I still remember my license number. It was KQN 3095, because the etiquette for CB usage is you would come onto the you would basically ask for permission to break into whatever channel you wanted to go on. 19 was usually the trucker channel, but there was lots of other channels. And you would say, KQN 3095, blah, blah, blah. Like that was, you give your license to prove that you had, a license to use this. And then you would, hey, what's up? This is my handle. You didn't give your real name because that would be dangerous. And of course, you never gave your real address because that would be dangerous. My handle was Dynamite. I still love that handle. That was the best handle ever. Oh, I love that handle. And the reason I love that handle was because I was obsessed with Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker and I were supposed to be getting married. He did not know this, but I loved that man. I mean, he was so funny. Come on, you guys have to remember him from Good Times with Florida, and George was and then Thelma. I mean, I loved that show. I love that show. And I loved Jimmy Walker because I just thought he was such a funny human being. And he was just always witty and quick-witted and sarcastic. And, he's everything I ever wanted to be except a tall black man. But I just loved him. And he had this hat and it said Dynamite on it for one thing. And that was like his call thing. He would always like clap his hands together and go, and Dynamite. And that's who he was. He was Jimmy Walker Dynamite. Loved him. So I started to, acquire that Dynamite thing. So that was my handle. My handle was Dynamite. So, of course, we made my little sister Firecracker. And then we made my older sister TNT. Like I said, they weren't into it. My dad, his handle was Cream and Sugar. Yeah, it was Cream and Sugar because that was his, he was a lunch truck driver. And remember, that is a characteristic, not a profession. My mother was Sugar and Cream. She wasn't really into it. She could care less. She just wanted to read a book. She did. She just so fascinated by learning. She was very, very, very good at that. And self-betterment. Always, lots of, learning about yourself, because, my gosh, the woman had a kid at 16 years old. She knew nothing. Oh, and her mother kicked her out when she got pregnant, which is nice. But anyway, they did just fine. Well, that's not true. They loved each other till the day they both died, but they got divorced and it was a good thing. And I was one of those kids that was like glad my parents were getting divorced, even though I was really, really, really close with my dad and I loved my dad. Oh my God. He and I just had this quirky bond because I think we were both the same wacko. Like we both had the goofball, nutty, just coming off the cuff with something stupid. Like we just both had that personality. And so, we just got each other, you know what I mean? Like we just got each other, like just the look, we just got each other. And then, but even when it was time for him to go, it was time for him to go because they fought. It was terrible. It was terrible. But anyway, so I was a CB person. And for years I was into that. And then what would happen if you got really, really a bunch of friends on there, you could call 1-800 number, a party line, which I know that's not just CB, but we CBers would do that. And you could talk to that person on the phone. You dial I believe it was an 800 number. I remember it being free because if it costs money, that's for damn sure my parents weren't going to let me do that. But you call this 800 number. And you could have, say, 4 people on the line. And it was a party line. And it was fun. And then you get to talk to somebody, live on the telephone. And I met some friends through there. I really did. It was very good. And adult friends that treated me knowing I was a child like an adult, but also knowing I was a child, so not being inappropriate. So it was a very, very, very fun time in my life. And I had it all, man. I had that antenna. I had this. I had that. But you get enemies just like anything else. And one time, somebody took a pin and they put it through my coax. The coax is the cable that goes from the back of the CB, the home base, all the way up the wall to that antenna. And if you put a pin in there, you get no power. I don't know who did it till this day. I don't know who did it. I have my ideas of who might have done it. But it was a cruel thing to do, and it scared the shit out of me because I was home alone. And I'm like, all of a sudden, you go to, and you have no power. You could see there's like the needles moving, like you got some power, but nobody can hear you. It was pretty scary stuff to do to a 10-year-old. So whoever did that, shame on you. Shame on you for doing that to a 10-year-old. Absolutely shame on you. But still, greatest times of my life on that CB. A dynamite! And I loved that. I loved that handle. And the KQN 3095. And I remember being a kid thinking, KQN, QN, like for Queen. Oh my God. But I did. I love that thing. And I was on it morning, noon, and night. And I had friends come over. Like, I did have friends. And I did have friends on my block. We have tons of friends on my block. I mentioned that in one of my other episodes. We always played like kickball and dodgeball and jump rope and just always active out there. But when it was raining or if it was nighttime, I was on that CB. I loved that CB. It was the best. And we had a couch in that basement, which kind of like a bed, like a day bed kind of thing. So I would sleep down there. So I kind of had my own little room going on down there, which was kind of nice as well. So I would be on that all night. My parents would be asleep. They didn't know. And I would just be on that thing all night long. That's when the weirdos would come on. But yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But I just wanted to tell you that because that was a pretty fun part of my life that I was into that. And the lunch truck, once again, I know I repeat myself all the time, but I know not every one of you hear all of these episodes, but I'll repeat it again. The lunch truck driver is a personality. It is not a profession. You are a man or woman of your word. So if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you give someone your word is everything. My father taught that your word is everything. And then you never, ever show up late. That's just, you might as well slap somebody right across the face. Being late, nope, not going to happen. And a lot of integrity, just a lot of integrity being a lunch truck driver. And that's why he was so successful at that shipyard. And I'd love to hear if anybody ever knew Vic. Vic from the shipyard back in the 70s. And had the longest line. Because like I said, I used to go to work. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, how come everybody's in your line? And I think at one point I actually said to people, those trucks over there are open. Nah, we wait for your daddy's coffee, honey. We wait for your daddy's coffee. I remember my dad saying, yeah, she don't know. But he had the personality. Because at 16, he's running his own steak shop to support his kid and his wife by himself at 16 years old with no high school education. And I'm not sure the whole story. There's different versions. I don't know that he was in high school that much at all. But man, was he smart as a whip. Oh, and then he also worked as a bartender. He worked at a place called Walbers, which was in Delaware County on the river. Walbers. And I remember every once in a while, he would take the family out to dinner. We'd go there and he'd let me get lobster. Lobster. I'm 9 years old and I'm getting a lobster. Lobster. And he never once said to me, you can't have that, because it was a special occasion. He knew we never went out to eat. I mean, even to go to McDonald's like that. We just didn't do that. My mother was supposed to have food on that table every single night, and it better be a home-cooked meal. And don't even try to fool him with the TV dinner that you're going to heat up and put on a plate, because he's going to know it because she tried it and it went across the room. So he was a man of his ways, and God bless her. I don't know how long she put up with that. I couldn't do it either. I was more like my mom. I knew I wanted to be a mom, but I also knew I wanted a career. But I was fortunate enough to grow up in times where it was perfectly encouraged to be able to have both. I was very fortunate that I was able to do that, because I really, I mean, if I had to choose, I would choose to be a mom. But I'll be real honest with you. I would not be happy being a housewife and having dinner on the table for my husband every night. Not so much. Not so much. That wouldn't have worked. Just the whole rules and regulations. Because I did tell you last time, and I promise I will get into it at some point, but my husband and I, married 24 years, are separated but still living under the same roof. Cuckoo, cuckoo. But it's worked out okay, believe it or not. He has a girlfriend. He spends time with her. Ever since, it's actually worked out fine. Couple caveats here. You guys already know I have cancer. I'm still doing great. My scans are great. I plan on living a very long time. I did meet the girlfriend. I really wanted to like her. At one point, I was like, oh my God, you know what? I don't know if I get really sick and he can't take care of me. Maybe thought of moving her in. I don't know. Sometimes I'm a little too open-minded. But, I didn't get a good vibe when I met her. So I thought it best for everyone involved, especially my children, if we did not do it that way. So she got her own place and he goes and sees her, and that's great. And I'm happy for him. He deserves to be happy. And we get along pretty good. We're actually really good friends. We really are. But so I just wanted to give you that whole 12:48 at night. I have a flight tomorrow. I have to be at the airport about 9:15. I'm going away for a week to Denver. I've never been to Denver, so I'm very excited. And then I'm going to see a Rockies game. I'm going to do some other fun things. There's a botanical garden there that I heard is beautiful. And now I know I'm officially old because I like botanical gardens all of a sudden, evidently. But I saw these pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, these flowers are gorgeous. And then on Sunday, which is Mother's Day, both my kids work. So Mother's Day's never been a big deal for us. So I will be leaving Denver and going to visit my friend in Arizona. And I always have a great time when I see her. She's like, I talked about her before one of my previous episodes. Just as soon as I met her, I knew she's the lunch truck driver. She's got that ethic, that work ethic, that, she just doesn't make excuses for anything. She just owns up to her stuff. She's smart as a whip. She was so overqualified for that job. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, she would have her whole entire day a 12-hour day's worth of work done in 3 hours, and impeccably done, impeccably. So quickly fell into love friendship with her, and we're still friends. She's been in Arizona now, I'm going to say 12 years, and we're still friends. And I like to go out to see her. Of course, when I get out there, it'll be 97, 98, 99, but she's got a pool. It's cool. I've been out there when it's hot before. The hottest it's ever been when I was out there was like 107. And I know that sounds roasting hot, and it is, but like they have misters and everything's covered, and most people have pools. And if you do go to a bar, there's like these misters in a bar. So it's like, when you go to an amusement park and you're like really hot day, and it's just like a cool mist on you. So, I can handle it. And I'm going to be there for a couple of days visiting her and her lovely man and her cute dog, Carl, who I miss Carl too. And I've gotten to know all her friends who are all great people. Always have a great time when I'm there. So I just had to pop on here and tell you about the CB and how cool it was for me and how it was dynamite. So keep your comments coming. I love when you guys tell me positive things. I gotten some negative ones, which I do not publish, but feel free to write them. You can't insult me because I don't care. I really don't. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for fun. So say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. I love it. I love it. Just say whatever you want. I'm on wherever you hear podcasts, I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm on Spotify. Obviously, this is Spotify now. I'm on Amazon. It's great. It's great for me. And I do it all from my phone. Yes, I have a laptop. Yes, I'm too lazy to figure out all the great ways that I can edit these things and make it even better than it is. But that too shall come in time. But for right now, I just want to get my stories out there because they're pretty cool. Hey guys, I love you. I love you for listening to me. I love your feedback. I love telling you my funny stories. And anybody ever hear about Vic from the shipyard back in the 70s? Let me know. That was my dad. He was a lunch truck driver. He also was a bartender at Wahlburgers, and I don't think Wahlburgers is still there, but it was in Delaware County. And he did some other things to put 3 kids through Catholic school and make sure his wife didn't have to work. But love you guys so much. Thank you again. Bye. One more thing. Oh, here I go again with this night card. One more thing, I was just I didn't edit it. That's a lie. I listened back to it, and I just correct myself at the end. So I told you the CB cops' names were Smokies, and if they were in an undercover car, they were Smokies in a brown wrapper. And also, I said my father died in 2015, and that was not true. He died in 2014. So Mom died in April 2013. Dad died May 2000. Wait, hold on. Yeah. Mom died April 24th, 2013. Dad died. Sorry, I don't know why this has hit me so hard. Mom died April 23rd, 2013. Dad died May 24th, 2014. So she died in 13. He died in 14. Erroneously, I said he died in 15. That was incorrect. I just wanted to give you the heads up. Bye.